there everyone and welcome. This is a restorative yoga video designed to help you calm down your nervous system and create more space for your breath. So when we're able to take a slow, steady breath, and when our exhale is naturally longer than our inhale, then we are helping to keep ourselves in the rest and digest state of being. So that state of being where everything just seems to be a little bit calmer, a little bit slower. We can think more clearly and we can laugh more freely. So for today's practice, you'll need a blanket, a bolster or a pillow, or maybe two pillows, a couple of blocks if you've got them, if not books, or just something really you can support your feet on, and a yoga strap. Please don't worry if you don't have all of this stuff. You can improvise with things that you have at home, and some of it you can make do without. So the main thing really is that you've got a bolster or a couple of pillows and that you're warm and comfortable. Okay, so let's come into our first posture. We're going to be taking the legs up against the wall. So you place your mat up against the wall, and if this isn't possible for you in the space that you're in, you can always just use a chair or a footstool and place your legs onto that instead. Using a bolster, you place it about a hand's width away from the wall. So if you know the backs of your legs are a bit tighter, you can always move the bolster slightly further away from the wall, maybe say another hand's width at the most. But don't go really far from the wall because it actually makes it harder. If you're quite new to yoga, if you're feeling quite stiff in the back of your body, particularly the back of your legs, try this posture without the bolster. That applies to anyone that might be menstruating, just to make it more comfortable and easier to get into. So we're going to start sitting onto the end of the bolster. And if you're not using a bolster, you just sit on the floor. And if you do have a strap close to hand, then you can just step your feet through that strap and begin to tighten it. So I like to have my legs quite close together when I do this posture. You can have your legs slightly further apart, hip width, but no wider than hip width apart. The strap is very roughly halfway between your knees and your hips, just roughly speaking, so long as it's not all the way up to your knees. You don't want to put excess pressure on your knees. So we're going to use our arms to support ourselves. So you come right up onto the edge of your bolster, and then using your arms, you bring your legs up. So this is where it's tricky if your hamstrings are tight, because you need to start to straighten your legs as you roll yourself back and onto the bolster. And then when you're here, you can wiggle about as you need to. So tucking your shoulders under, lifting your hips, press your feet into the wall to lift your hips, and then lowering your hips and finding just the right place for your bolster. So that might be the back of your pelvis. It might be slightly up towards your bottom lower rib. So you can just explore exactly where you're getting the best support from your equipment. And then legs can be a little bit bent or straight, arms can come out to the sides, chin is in towards the chest, so feel free to put a thin cushion or support under your head if you need it. Eye pillows are welcome. And then this is where we begin our first posture. And if you never, or if you, I should say, if you don't always have time to do a full practice, and you're in that tired but wired state, then I really recommend this position. It's wonderfully calming, but also rejuvenating. And so very balancing. If your mind is busy, but your body is tired, then this posture helps bring both mind and body a little bit closer towards one another. So just allow yourself to really begin your practice now. coming into some stillness. And whatever your day has brought you, or maybe whatever lies ahead for you today, you can take this chunk of time as an opportunity to nourish and nurture yourself, topping up your energy, practicing self-care. And although you aren't trying to control your breath or change your breath, you might notice that your breath does start to change the longer you're in this position, particularly those of you using some support under your hips. You might start to notice your breath slowing down, maybe becoming a little longer. But don't try and force anything or create anything. Remember, this is restorative yoga, so we're restoring ourselves. It's almost like pressing a reset button. So we are dissolving the layers of tension that accumulate through our days, through our lives. Nourishing rather than depleting. So it takes time for us to let go of tension, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And this is why this is a slow practice. So unless you get really uncomfortable or particularly agitated, then I recommend you do see if you can stay in the postures for longer than perhaps you're used to. I'll be guiding you, of course. Because what we can learn through the practice of slow yoga is to observe our mind, and we start to learn that out of all of the many hundreds and thousands of thoughts that the mind is thinking, there's only a few of them that we usually need to take action with. Others we can just let come and go, like bubbles just bubbling up to the surface of a lake. We can just let them bubble up and dissolve. So when we're in the posture, sometimes the mind gets bored or restless. And if we can, we just stay with that. We breathe. And then we watch as that thought probably goes away or changes. If you're getting a persistent message that you need to move, then of course move. There's not one right or wrong way. There's not a perfect length of time to be in the postures. It's very unique to us, and this is why I'm encouraging you here to stay present with yourself, to listen to yourself, so that you can be the one that decides when it's time to move and when it's time to stay a little bit longer. So of course you can stay here for longer if that's suiting you. When you do feel ready to move, it's good to just lightly stretch and bend your toes a little and take your feet a little bit from side to side. And if you want to circle your feet a little, just to wake up the muscles of your feet and your legs. And then bend your knees so that your feet can hang somewhere down towards your bottom. You can cross at your ankles if you like, so that we allow the blood to make its way back down. And then moving carefully out of this posture, particularly if you're on the bolster, so that you're rolling to your side and coming all the way off, and then just resting on your side. Let your eyes softly open. And then using your arms, come up to sit when you're ready. You can slide your strap off. And then taking your bolster and preparing for child's pose. So I like to have something soft under my knees when I'm doing child's pose. If you find child's pose quite hard, I recommend you try doing it on your bed. And something else you can do is to make your bolster higher. So classically we come forward and down, but for some people to fold this much from the hips doesn't feel so comfortable, and maybe there's some problems in the lower back. So what you can do is take a couple of blocks or books, create a slope so that you folding forward onto that slope, not having to come so close to the floor. A second thing you can do is to put something on top of this. So that might be a folded blanket or a pillow. If you are using pillows, you definitely need at least two because they're quite squishy. Bolsters are nice and firm. So always make sure it's going to be comfortable for you. And as you fold forward, let your head turn to one side. If you have a spare cushion or an extra folded blanket that you want to use, feel free to pop that down. And then you can let your eyes close. So particularly for those of you that might find you a bit more like this in child's pose, if there's tightness in the backs of the legs, your hips might not come all the way down, then try this option of bringing your bolster up into more of a slope rather than lying flat. So here we start to open up the back body. This is primarily where your lungs are. And this is another posture that helps us to breathe more fully and deeply. So we gently stretch the muscles of the back and we gently stretch the spine. And as these areas start to soften a little bit, then the lungs have a bit more space. we're going to just turn our head the other direction now, and this side of your neck might be tighter, so if you need to turn it back at any time, feel free to do so. And so when it's time to come up, gently turn your head so you're facing towards your bolster and use your arms, push yourself up. Come up slowly. And then we will turn to sit so that our left hip is in line with the bolster. Now, you can just have this very simple, just with a bolster here. I quite like to take either a pillow or a folded blanket, place it in between my thighs and my knees, so my legs have something to hold on to here. That gives me a great feeling of stability. If you want, you can always have an extra pillow or bolster either side of your bolster, actually. So you might have, I'm going to use blocks, a couple of blocks either side of your bolster, or a couple of pillows, or a couple of folded blankets. But equally, you can also do it without these and just stick with a single bolster if you just want to keep it nice and simple. So we're going to take a downward facing twist. So if you are pregnant or menstruating, you don't want to be twisting your uterus. So what you would do instead is fold yourself onto your side, and you get a nice stretch for the side of your body. Your front arm can rest down. Sometimes It's nice to have something to hug on to. So you've got that option. So it's a side stretch, or you can come into the twist. So with the twists, we start by sitting up tall and just finding the breath. So enjoy a couple of breaths here. And then when you're ready to come into the posture, use your inhalation and sit up taller. And as you exhale, you're going to turn your belly, your ribs and your chest, rotating, twisting through your spine, and then coming forward. You can turn your head away from your knees, but it's quite a strong stretch for your neck. So even if you start that way, you might not stay that way. You might prefer just to have your head facing the same direction as your knee. So feel free to have a extra support here for the head. If you were using blocks or something similar, just to show you what that would look like, you can kind of wedge them in so they're under your armpits. I know it doesn't look very comfortable with blocks, but if you get them at the right angle, it does work. So you're looking to support your armpit space. And then you are here in the posture. So giving yourself that time to relax and unwind. So much like the first posture we started with, this is another posture which is good for both calming and rejuvenating. Stretching all the muscles of the back, giving your organs a little squeeze and massage. Keeping the vertebrae of your spine supple. So if your head is turned the other way to your knees, start by gently turning your head back and relax your neck for a moment. And then nice and gently use your arms and push yourself up to sitting, and just sit for a moment so you can notice the difference in the two sides of your body. And then we can set up for the other side. So you can just turn and face the other way. I'm going to move so I'm still facing you. And we do exactly the same thing. So this time we're on the right hip. Support between the legs if needed. Additional support either side of your bolster if needed. Either coming into that side lying position if you're pregnant or menstruating. Or if you're twisting, working with your breath so that your inhale sees you grow tall. And as you exhale, start with your navel. So you can use your hands if you want. You turn your belly, your ribs and your chest, all on the exhale. And then lower yourself down. Remember to take your time. Sometimes the twists aren't always so easy just to sink into. So it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of arrangement of equipment. And then you start to find yourself there. So taking your time to get into the posture, then allowing some time to become still in the posture. One side of the body can be very different from the other, so be aware of that and be mindful if you do have any injuries, new or old, in your neck, your shoulders, your hips, your spine. So again, if your head is turned away from your knees, very gently bring your head back so you're facing the same direction as your knees, and rest your head and relax your neck. And then use your arms to bring yourself up. So again, you can just sit for a moment. It can be really nice just to actually experience this feeling now around your rib cage and the back of your ribs. A little bit more openness perhaps. A little bit more space for breath. And then we'll come into a slightly different posture. So this is a back bending posture. So again, it has the qualities of energizing the system, but because we're using all of our yoga equipment, it also stays very calming for us. So I'm going to unfold my blanket over the whole of my mat now. And if you are by a wall, then the wall can be really useful. Don't worry if you're not, you don't need to be. But you are going to need a couple of blocks or books. And if you're against the wall, you can just place them against the wall like that. Now what you're looking for with your support is that it's roughly the same height as your bolster, more or less. So you can always top it up with a folded blanket or something similar. And then your bolster is a few hand widths away from your support. Now how long really depends on the length of your body, the length of your torso and the length of your legs. So this is a sort of posture that sometimes you have to do it a few times before you find out what's right for you. And one thing you could do is to lie next to it, and when you're lying down, so as if your feet lined up against the wall, if you're against the wall, your bolster wants to be about in line with your chest, just below your chest, so at your rib cage area. So that can sometimes be helpful. So we're going to again be sitting onto the bolster. If you've got a strap, it's quite useful here. You can again tie your legs together, bring the legs fairly close, feet onto your block. If you're at the wall, it's quite useful because you can push against the wall. Now to come into this posture, you want to slide your way back. So this isn't, you're not doing this, you're not walking your shoulders back, because your upper back will get all caught up and that will cause tension in your lower back. So you're going to slide your way off. So if you're at the wall, you can push the wall. Be mindful of your shirt because you don't want to strangle yourself. So you slide yourself back until your shoulder blades, the very top of your shoulder blades, is on the floor. So my head is on the floor, my shoulder blades are on the floor. My bolster is at the bottom of my shoulder blades, which is bringing this big lift to my breastbone. And then my arms are down by my side. So if I can slide off, then I'm having a really deep stretch. I'm pulling the skin of my back downwards. So I'm creating more length through the spine. If you walk yourself backwards, it doesn't really work. So if once you're in the posture, you are feeling some tension in your lower back, and that is quite common, so don't be worried by that, but this can be helpful just to bend your legs and place your feet on the floor, and that can often make it easier. For those of you that are able to stay with straight legs, feel as though you're rolling your thighs in towards one another, just small muscular effort. So this is a great posture for opening up your chest. So particularly if you've been at a computer for a bit too long, this front body around the pecs particularly can get quite tight and short. But it can also feel quite strong, quite a powerful posture. So you might not stay in this one for as long as some of the others. It really is your choice. It's much better to be in a posture for 1 or 2 minutes, relaxing into it, and then to come out of it when it gets uncomfortable, rather than force yourself to be anywhere. So see if you can allow yourself to be held here, just relaxing any tension in your shoulders, around your face, your eyes and your jaw, in your hands and your feet. So to move out of this position, bending up your legs, planting your feet to the floor, and then gently rolling again to your sides, coming slowly off your supports. Rest on your side, feel free to use a hand under your head. And then push yourself up to sitting. Slide off your strap. And we're going to come all the way down to the floor for Shavasana now. So make sure you're really warm at this point. If you've got socks or jumpers you want to put on, maybe you've got an extra blanket you'd like to use as a cover. So we're going to just be lying in a very simple way. You can really lie however's comfortable, but I find most people like to have some support under their knees. So you can have your support directly under your knees, or you can bring it up slightly higher. So it's still under your knees, but it's also a bit under your thighs. So it's quite a small difference, but it will affect which part of your back is sinking to the floor. So choose what's going to suit you best. And then we come to lie all the way down. So as you come to lie, it's always good just to adjust your clothes. Tuck your shoulders under one at a time. And then just lightly lift your hips and lengthen your tailbone. And then lower your hips down. So your spine should feel nice and long. Slide the legs away from you. Let your arms rest to the side. Chin is in towards the chest. And we come into some stillness. So noticing the feeling of your body on the floor. All the points of contact between your body and the floor. And allowing your awareness just to drift around your body. You might start by noticing the feeling in your hands. Your thumbs and your fingers. Up through your arms, your elbows, your shoulders. Becoming aware of the feeling in your chest, into your belly, into your back and your spine. Moving up into the back of your neck, your head, your eyes and your tongue. Just feeling the sensations of your head, your throat, your chest and your arms, your hands, your upper back, middle back and lower back and your belly, your hips, your legs, moving down past your thighs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet, all of your toes. Allowing your whole body just to rest, with nothing to do. So of course stay lying for as long as you like. When you're ready, slowly wiggle your fingers and toes. Start to notice the feeling of your body again as you circle your ankles and your wrists. And if you would like to stretch, sigh, yawn, then you're very welcome to do so. Always be gentle with your eyes. Bring them back softly. Bend up the knees. Roll to your sides. And come up to sit when you're ready. Sitting comfortably, hands at heart. Take a slow breath in, a long breath out. Acknowledging this time you have taken for yourself. And we will end there. So thank you so much for joining me for this practice. Everyone, come back to it at any time that you like, any time of day, any time of year, any time that you feel a bit tired and need a boost. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.